Members, this is a meeting of the Subcommittee on Declaration of Geographical Constituencies, Legislative Council Order 2015. First thing to do is to elect a chairman of this subcommittee. Nominations: Mr. Yu Si-wing. I nominate Mr. Tam Yu Chung. Seconder, Ms. Priscilla Leung. I accept it. So we need to have a member to chair the proceedings. Mr. K. Fong, you are highest on the order of President, so you have to come forward. I've been nominated as a candidate.
Okay. 仲有冇其他提名?
Do we have another nomination? 1, 2, 3, no nomination. So, Mr. Tam Yu Chung, you are elected chairman. Mr. Tam, please.
好，咁我哋就議程嘅第二啦，就係請政府代表入嚟，我哋同。
Number 2, please invite the administration to join us. Members, do we need a deputy chairman? I don't think so. Let's hope that we don't need to hold many meetings for this particular order.
首先我哋歡迎政府方面嘅代表。
I'd like to welcome the team from the administration. We have the Under Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs, Mr. Ronald Chan, Mr. Gordon Leung, Deputy Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs, Ms. Helen Chung, PAS, Ms. Jenny Chan, Deputy Chief Electoral Officer from MAO, and Ms. Maddie Ng, Senior Government Counsel. Welcome. The information papers have been issued to members. Please refer to the Legal Service Division Report, LS3/1516, and the background brief, electrical paper, CB2 175/1516, bracket 01, for background information. I would like to invite the administration to brief members on the Declaration of Geographical Constituencies, Legislative Council Order 2015. This is a piece of subsidiary legislation which has to do with the number of seats for geographical constituencies in the 2016 Legislative General Election. So, Under Secretary, for a briefing, please. Thank you, Chairman. For the general election and the boundaries of the GCs, the EAC submitted a report to the CE on the 28th of August. The names and the boundaries are recommended to remain unchanged. As for the 38 seats, then we have to look at the population distribution. 5 seats were given to the Kowloon East, 6 seats each for Hong Kong Island and Kowloon West, and 9 seats each for NT West and NT East. On the 14th of October, the report of the EAC has been submitted to this Council for members' perusal. And the administration has accepted the recommendations on the boundaries, the names, and the number of seats for each GC. And we have prepared this order to implement the recommendations. That's all for my briefing. We are happy to answer members' questions. That's simple and straightforward. Members, do you have any questions? It's because of population or the changes to the number of voters in each GC. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, well, it's already at the very end of the process. At one time, the administration said or hinted that there will be 9 GCs instead of 5, and then some people raised objections saying that this will be cutting it too much into smaller constituencies. And now the recommendation is are made because of change in population figures. Well, no one can query that. So you want to keep 35 directly elected seats. But you can adopt a middle-of-the-road approach for changes, such as changing the number of GCs to 6, from 5 to 6, and then each GC would have a similar number of seats. Hong Kong Island 6, Kowloon East and West, both, or each would get 6. And NT West and NT East will be combined and divided into 3, so that each of the 3 new GCs will have 6 seats each. Now you can either have 9 for big GC and then 6 for another GC. So can we not have 6 GCs instead, and each GC would have 6 seats? Under Secretary, on the number of GCs, since the first term of Legislative election, we have been maintaining the 5 GCs. The general public generally find this acceptable, and for prospective candidates and political parties, they have been working on this basis of distribution of GCs in Hong Kong. If we are to change the GCs, well, it's going to be a major change requiring a lot of discussion and a high degree of consensus. During the constitutional reform, we consulted the public as regards whether we should maintain 5 GCs or make some suitable changes. At that time, the public didn't say much on this subject. And different political parties in Legislative expressed divergent views, some for, some against, concerning the number of GCs. So having considered all these factors, we believe that for the 2016 general election, Legislative general election, it would be appropriate to maintain 5 GCs. But for the longer term, should adjustments be made to the number of GCs? Well, we have an open mind about this. We are willing to continue to engage members of this council and different political parties in discussion. But for 2016 legislative election, if we are to change the number of GCs, we need to amend the Legislative Council Ordinance. The remaining time for us will not be sufficient. Having said that, we have an open mind. We are willing to continue to explore this subject with legislative members. Well, last time the consultation was more about the CE election rather than whether we should have 5 GCs or 6 GCs. your predecessor, Mr. Lau Kong-wah, for some time, hinted or leaked some information saying that we should have 9 GCs. We understand that time doesn't allow us to do much now. Well, you talk about an open mind. Well, it's not a question about whether you have an open mind. You must take the initiative because you have to consult people over this. When are you going to have something more concrete put on the table, present some discussion topics? When are you going to do that? I don't think it would be possible for this to be done within our current term. Well, thank you for your comments, Mr. Sin. Mr. Yu Si-wing. As for the discrepancies in terms of the percentage, well, it's sort of extreme. It's 9.6 for Kowloon West and NT-West plus 10% odd. So we're talking about a big deviation. It's difficult to make changes at this stage because after our discussions, the next election will just be around the corner. For the next exercise to delineate the boundaries of GCs or to designate the number of seats, you should present your proposals earlier. But this time, it seems that we have no choice but to go along with your recommendations. Under Secretary, for the number of seats, the number of GCs, and the drawing of boundaries, they involve taking a number of steps. We have to look at the upper and lower limits of seats, which are governed by the Legislative Council Ordinance. And then on that basis, the EAC, as an independent statutory body, will be responsible for drawing up the boundaries and for designating the number of seats. Under the EAC ordinance, EAC is required to come up with recommendations on the number of seats and the number of GCs, and the recommendations have to be submitted to the CE. After the recommendations are endorsed by the CE in Council, the proposals will be presented to this Council for consideration. And when the EAC that did all those things, there was a public consultation. And earlier, the EAC, after coming up with preliminary recommendations, conducted a public consultation exercise. In the report submitted to the CE, the formal, the finalized recommendations, are only submitted after the consultation exercise was completed. So the statutory procedure already allows the public to give their views during the process of drawing up the boundaries and designating the number of seats. As a matter of fact, there was a meeting of the CA panel where members' views were sought.
Mr. Yu Si-wing, so looking at the figures, we saw big discrepancies, this big deviation. So, according to you, you have already followed all the procedures, but is there any room for improvement? For instance, is there enough time for public consultation? If not, can you advance? Can you not advance the public consultation? So next time, can you be more? Can you conduct more public consultation so that people can give you their views? And when some organizations may go and prepare more information and study with you later. So can you improve your way of doing things? Because if we look at the percentage of deviation, there are really problems. This time it may not be helped, and it cannot be helped, but next time, can you do better in terms of public consultation? Mr. Chen. I think there was enough time for public consultation. When the Electoral Affairs Commission conducted its public consultation. Now, if you may refer to the report by the Commission, views of the public were clearly set out, and regarding justifications or arguments collected during the public consultation, the Commission replied in at length the reasons for accepting or rejecting them. So whether it be the timing or analysis of views collected by the Commission, I think it was quite sufficient and satisfactory. Dr. An Jiang. Now, this is the first time I take part in this kind of meeting. So what should be the procedures? Is it for us to be given a briefing by the Undersecretary, and we ask some questions, and that's it? Can we amend the order, for instance? All right, can our legal advisor explain what the order is about, whether we can amend it? If yes, how? In what way? Thank you. This Declaration of Geographical Constituencies, Electoral Order 2015, was made by the CE in Council in accordance with the Electoral Ordinance. There are things that cannot be changed. For instance, the 5 geographical constituencies that cannot be changed. 35 members to be returned by direct elections. This cannot be changed. For each constituency, there should be no more than 5, no less than 5, and no more than 9 members. So for the rest, they can all be amended, subject to other provisions, or whether there is any charging effect. All right, I understand that there must be delineation of constituencies on the basis of distribution of a population. A couple of years ago, there were discussions as to how the delineation should be amended. I'm sure the administration is willing to listen to our views. All right. Since the order is here, and now, according to the advisor, we cannot change the delineation of the GCs. We can only make textual amendments, editorial amendments, right? There can be no change to the substance. Now, all of a sudden, there is 1 seat less in on Hong Kong Island GC. That would mean less opportunities for incumbent or for candidates. Of course, you may say that, well, they can continue to compete, but in the past, a candidate might be the last candidate in who got elected. Now the seat is lost, and then you have changed or allocate that seat to another GC. You should have announced that long ago, so the people who intend to run would have sufficient time to be prepared. But if it is already so late, there won't be enough time for people to plan. I hope you can do it earlier next time. And now you have more and more seats in one GC. For the biggest one, there are 9 seats, but there may be 2 candidates competing for 1 seat. There may be over a dozen in an election forum. Is that healthy? I think you should really reconsider this in the future. And I hope in the future you can also consider requiring more nominations for a candidate. At present, it is 100. So some candidates ended up getting 200 votes or even less. You can check the record. So people may just did it for fun. That would ruin the elections. Some people joined the race just to put up a show. And some members of the public said that they could not hear us at election debates. It was so noisy, and that was not something good for Hong Kong. You can say, for instance, in future, you need 2,000 nominations. That is not asking for too much, right? Usually you need at least 30 or 40,000 votes to get elected. So you're asking for 5% of 40,000 votes. That means 2,000 nominations. I think you have gone beyond the scope of the order, Dr. N. Cheng. But if you have the opportunity in the future, you can talk about that. Well, but I think the Undersecretary is the right person to speak to. I think I just want to mention this in passing. All right, your time is up. Ms. Sidho. I know that for this time we cannot change it because the principal ordinance says that it should be in between 5 and 9. Now, in some constituency, the base is $7.3 million, and I'd like to know in what year did we start with the range 5 to 9 members? What was the year this started? Now, for instance, Hong Kong Island properties are more and more expensive. For a young couple, it's impossible for them to live on Hong Kong Island. They could not afford Hong Kong Island, and they have to move to more remote places. So you can see that in some GCs, the population has aged, and for NT-East, NT-West, I think you have really deviated too much from the quota. So if you have a Northwest and Atlanta as well, then the population in Kowloon West will be very high. According to pre-establishment people, Hong Kong should develop into a city with 10 million population. I hope this is not true, but can you tell us the basis for setting the figure or the range 5 to 9, and can you amend the principal legislation in order to echo the change in demography in different GCs? Whenever there is a change in the number of GC seats in legislative elections, we would adjust the floor and ceiling for the rate each time. In the last constitutional reform, we changed the number of GC seats from 25 to 30 to 35, and we've also adjusted the upper and lower limits of seats for each GC. And of course, in each adjustment, we have to bear in mind the actual circumstances. If the lower limit is too low, now because our election system is that of proportional representation, if the lower limit is too low, this may lower the representativeness of election results. Meanwhile, we don't want the upper limit to be too high, because this may, because some lists may be elected even though the number of votes is not too many, and this is undesirable. So in making adjustments, we have to take all this into account. Last time when the number of GC seats was increased to 35, we adjusted the upper and lower limits of seats. Can I follow up? Intellectual brief, paragraph 5. We're told that political factors would not be taken into account. But I think what the Undersecretary told us was not the case. He said that under the proportional representation had to be so. In fact, if you increase the number of seats to 10, 12, it is closer to the spirit of proportional representation. However, you stopped at the figure 9. As a result, your system is closer to the single vote, single seat system. So this is one factor with political implications. Therefore, I don't think you should set the limit at 9 for each GC. We may not have another round of constitutional reform to increase the number of GC seats. It may still remain at 35, but it is not right. In Commonwealth, it is -9%, whereas in NT-West, it is plus 10%. The discrepancy is far too big. Undersecretary, allow me to clarify. Ms. Sitho said that factors with political implications are not considered. Well, this is one of the working principles in the EAC. The EAC, being an independent statutory body, is responsible for delineation of GCs and distribution of seats among the GCs. Its work will not be subject to political considerations. Regarding the upper and lower limits of seats for each GC and the number of seats in each GC, in fact, these are provided for in the Legislative Ordinance. So this is just a clarification. Ms. Sitho, taking away one seat from the Hong Kong Island GC so that the population served by each candidate will be 210,000. I agree, although I will be affected, but I think the seat should go to NT-West, because if we do this, then the population served per seat will be 210, and also very close to the figure 216,900 in Kowloon East. Why can't you do this? I know you are confined by the principal ordinance. That's exactly why the principal ordinance should be amended. Undersecretary, first, whether that seat can go to NT-West. The allocation of seats is done by the EAC, and when the EAC allocates seats, it is bound by the principal ordinance, and that's why that seats cannot be allocated to NT-West because it has already got 9 seats, the highest among the 5 GCs. And the principal ordinance doesn't allow the EAC to allocate that additional seat to NT-West. As regards amendment to the principal ordinance, I'm afraid we don't have enough time to do it for the 2016 legislative elections. However, in the long term, as I said, the number of GC seats. For instance, can we increase the number of GCs so that the number of seats can be allocated more evenly among the DCs?
As I've said, I keep an open mind. We have an open mind about this. Although the time-wise, we can't do this for 2016, but willing to explore everything with members in the future. One last follow-up question: the change to the number of seats in each GC was announced, was made public in March, April, the end of first quarter or the start of second quarter. The EAC is constrained by the principal ordinance. But you don't do things only when the deadline is approaching. Did the EAC take it up with the Bureau so that because of population changes, something should be done to amend the principal ordinance so that there will be more even distribution of seats? I don't know whether there's a breakdown of communication. If you can't make it in 2016, is it because of the lack of the poor preparation you did? If that's the mentality, then in 2020, with other changes in population, you'll still be lagging behind. You will not be able to catch up with demographic changes. So why gonna better coordinate your work? Well, the EAC is an independent statutory body. In discharging its duties, it will not be subject to any interference from the Policy Bureau and other departments. Well, I'm not talking about interference by your bureau. You should sit down. You too should sit down and look at the figures and work things out. Concerning the changes to the upper and lower limits of seats in each GC, it can be effected through legislative amendments to the Legislative Council ordinance. So can something be done to make adjustments to complement demographic changes in the future? Well, this is a subject that we are willing to talk about with members in the future. I'm saying that Ms. Sito is saying that don't blame EAC. If you did your preparation in good time, you could have amended the Legislative Council ordinance. Mr. Chairman, with one more seat given to GC, I believe it will go to your party. Well, it's difficult to tell. At that time, there was some reason for setting the upper limit of a GC. I remember questions were asked about why it was set at 9. If a big GC has more than 9 seats, then it means that the list getting a small number of votes will already be given a seat. At present, it's a 5 or 6%. So if it's more than 9, then you would get 4% of votes, and then you get a seat. But at the same time, your security money will be forfeited because the votes you get is under 5%. So it sounds strange if we have a situation like that. So that's why it was considered that a GC should not have too many seats. You are correct, Chairman. At one time, we did consider whether, because of demographic changes, the upper limit should be revised upwards to 10. But as you've said, if the number of seats in the GC is very high, then the list of candidates will be able to win a seat with a relatively low percentage of votes gained. That would not be satisfactory. At present, although the upper limit of seats in the GC is 9, the expected population served by one seat compared with the standard number is still coming within the 15% of deviation allowed in the law. So at present, this arrangement is considered appropriate. But we are willing to talk with members in the future as regards whether we need to change other details. Mr. Alan Leung, in Annex C of the government's paper, we have the EAC report. And on page 9 of the EAC report, 2.12, bracket A and bracket B, there's an explanation on the 2 steps taken on allocating the seats. First, they look at the projected population up to the 30th of June 2016. The projection figure is 7.3705 million, and if you divide this figure by 35, i.e. 35 seats, then the number of the population served by each member is such and such. And in the next paragraph, paragraph 2.13, of counting from the left, the third quorum tells you that it's 33 sets, 6, 5, 5, 9, 8, 33 seats, and then 2 more in another column. And under B, there's a reference to Appendix 1, but I think it's not printed out here to save paper. There are 6 options, A, B, C, D, F. On what basis were those rejected by the EAC? In other words, why the EAC opted for option E? Under Secretary, please also take a look at your paper, page 5 of your paper, where you can see the deviation from resulting number, and that's relevant to the 2.12b of the EAC's report and the factors therein for the 5 GCs. They all come within plus or minus 15% of deviation allowed by EAC. So you need to allocate the 2 remaining seats so as to reduce the deviation. For Kowloon West, it's given 1 more seat. It's a minus 9.6%. So 1 more seat is allocated to reduce the deviation. For NT East, it's a minus 6.31%. So 1 more seat is allocated. For the NT West, it's a positive figure, positive 10.8%. 82%. Well, it's constrained by the maximum of 9 seats. Otherwise, NT-West should be given more seats because the deviation is plus 10%. It's the highest among the GCs. So is my understanding correct? So please tell us more about the rejected options in Appendix 1 to the EAC's report. And you have been doing this for years. Did it ever occur before? And I know that the projections are made by the Census and Statistics Department. Have you ever conducted any follow-up tracking survey or verification? For example, after 2012 election was over, there was a projection figure for the population on the 30th of June 2012. Are you going to confirm the actual population on the 30th of June 2012 and to compare the actual figure with the projections made by the CNS department? Did you ever do that, Undersecretary? Chairman, for this particular matter, I would like to ask my colleague from the EAC, Ms. Chan, from the REO, to respond. If I may, Chairman, I would like to respond to Mr. Leung's question. After the EAC has come up with the provisional recommendations for the public consultation exercise, and the recommendations cover boundaries of the GCs and the population served by each seat was also announced, and we would take the steps in 1 and 2, the 2 steps concerned, and set out the relevant information in the consultation document. In this paper submitted to this council, members cannot find the 6 options. 33 seats are already allocated after going through the 2 steps, and then the 2 seats will remain, and the 2 seats will be allocated through a number of options available. We'll look at the number of the deviation resulting from getting additional seats. And in Appendix 1 of the EAC report, all the 6 options are listed out. And under all these options, there is no way we can give another seat to NT-West because it's already got 9 in the first round. So we can only consider Hong Kong Island, Kowloon West, Kowloon East, and NT East. And for the possible allocations, there are 6 options. So we look at the deviation from resulting from allocating additional seats, arising from allocating the 2 remaining seats. After allocating the 2 seats to 2 GCs, and we look at the deviation as a percentage. And we look at the range of the percentage deviation, minus something to plus something. If we give one to Kowloon West and another one to Kowloon or to Kowloon East, the deviation will be lowest. The difference of the populations per seat will be lowest. That's why we go for that option. What about census figures? And do you take any action to track the figures? According to the ordinance, in drawing up the boundaries and allocating seats, we should get census statistics in the year of election. And there's a task force led by the Planning Department. The members of the task force include CNS Department, CMAB, Lands, and REO. And the recommendations are worked out after getting the relevant data. And the basis of is the population projection of the CNS department for the 30th of June 2016. We look at the projection population figures, and that will form the basis of our recommendations.
And after we've submitted our proposals for the CE's consideration, our work ends there. We will not ask the Census and Statistics Department for population statistics again to confirm the projection. Ms. Ellen Leung, so the answer is no. Have they ascertained whether the projections were correct or not? I don't know whether politically accountable officers feel that there is a need. I know that they did their recommendations on the basis of projections, but shouldn't they check on the 30th of June 2016 to see whether the population, the real population, is as projected? And I think it is for the Secretary to assess whether there is the need. Now we don't have Annex 1 here, Roman 1. Can there be a paper to list out A, B, C, D, E, F for us so that we can see at a glance? Can we be given that information? For sure, this can be found in the EAC's report. That means I can get the report online. And I think the report has been distributed to members. It's orange. I haven't brought it along. It's in my office. There is a table setting out all 6 options. All right, I'll go and check it. Now, if you can't find it, Mr. Leung, the Secretariat can give you a copy. Mr. Ip got him. Thank you. I think it's quite unlikely or impossible for the order to be changed because it's something very mechanical. The exercise is dependent on the distribution of population. I don't think this is very desirable. Hong Kong Island has got 7 members now, but it will have 1 seat less in the future. So it's plus 0.35%, and whereas for Kowloon West, and the deviation is negative 9 point something. And you have already determined that there should be 5 GCs, and the number of seats should be somewhere in between 5 and 9. Yes, well, we cannot challenge you on the basis of distribution of population. The current arrangement is very undesirable. I'd like to ask whether you think it is necessary to review the number of GCs we have. For one GC is so big that there are 9 seats, and for another one, there are only 5 seats. Can't you make the number of seats more even among the various GCs? Because in that big GC, there are 9 seats and the population is so high. While you can't change it for the coming term, can you consider changing it for the term beyond it? Of course, many of us may not be around to discuss that anymore, but can you consider that possibility? The administration said that it maintained an open mind, but they won't be in time for this change this term. Well, we are pleased, or we're more than happy to discuss with the Council regarding these matters. A change in the number of GCs is a major change. Since the first legislative election, members have got used to the number of GCs we have, and I believe legislators have done a lot district work on the basis of the delineation of GCs. But if the Council, different political parties, and the community have the same aspiration of a future review in the number of GCs in the future, we are more than happy to continue to listen to such comments. Well, I think, for the GC with 5 seats, you have to get 20% of the votes before you can get elected. But for the GC with 9 seats, you need only 10% in order to get elected. So I think the weight is so different for the different GCs. So let's say with 100 voters, you need only 7 voters and you get elected. Whereas for another GC, you need 20 people to vote for you before you can get elected. So you should not put the blame on legislators. Don't say that we didn't want you beforehand. And it's also hard for legislators to serve such a big GC. Now we have members from NT West here. NT West with Mr. Tam Yu Chong. It is such a big place. And the population is 2.1 million. How can one candidate or one member serve 2.1 million? It may be easier for members with political party affiliation, but for independent legislators, it's really hard for him to serve his own constituency. I know it is irrelevant this time, but I just like to mention this. Well, we can address it ourselves. For a big GC, we can have several lists. Mr. Ho, I hope you won't call my question hypothetical, because it is quite likely to happen. For the number of GCs, it is bound by the principal ordinance. The number of seats, also the range 5 to 9, and the deviation 5 to 10%. All these are bound by the principal ordinance. And for NT West, the deviation is 4%. That is 790,000. So if you have 1 or 2 more public housing estates, then the limit would be exceeded. All right. What if these situations happen? What are you going to do? Will you only think of the 6th GC by then? then you will have to amend your system to suit the real situation, and then you will have to contradict what you tell us today. So I think you should do a decent public consultation. When the population of NT-West grows more and more, we'll really see what we can do. But for the legislative elections in 2016, I think the projected population and the standard population are within the deviation allowed in the legislation. But if the population continues to rise after 2016 to the extent that has gone beyond the allowed deviation, then indeed there is a need to redelineate the GCs. The easiest way is to adjust the boundaries, but it also depends on whether there is a substantial change in the population of different DCs or GCs, the uniqueness of a GC, and also community ties. And of course, another option is to increase the number of GCs. I agree that we should continue to consider something along this line. As I said, we are willing to continue to discuss with members. Now, this paper talked about ensuring the integrity of a community, and that they cannot adjust the boundaries. Well, if the population is above the limit, then you have to face the embarrassment of contradicting your own arguments now. Chunwan and Kwai Chung are highly urbanized, and they should we said long ago that they should go into Kowloon West, but you didn't listen to me. When the population of NT-West exceeds your limits, then you have to come back and contradict yourself. I think you should adopt a more preemptive approach. You should see how this can be addressed. Any other questions or comments? If there are no other questions, I think we should go through the order clause by clause. Do we have the order here with us? Please explain it to us one by one. Ms. Zhong, please. Please explain the order to us, clause by clause. We'll first deal with the Chinese text. Thank you, Chairman. First, the first clause is commencement. According to this clause, the commencement date will be the 1st of January 2016, and that is, it will only come into effect after the scrutiny period is over. Okay, any question? No. Second clause, interpretation, provides definition for some of the terms used in the order. First, constituency boundary, constituency code, and approved map. First, constituency boundary. In relation to an area declared to be a GC by this order means the boundary represented in the relevant approved map by the unbroken edging colored red delineating that area, and B, described as 2016 LCGC boundary, coincides with district boundary in the legend of that map. And then constituency code, specified in column 2 of the schedule opposite that area and colored red in the relevant approved map and described as 2016 GC code in the legend of that map.
Any question? If not, please continue. And Section 3, Declaration of Legislative Geographical Constituencies. That is an approved map. Each area marked on the approved map as described in the one approved by CN Council. The map is also annexed to the order for members' reference. Please continue. Declaration of Legislative Council Geographical Constituency, and this is for the purpose of the election of LegCo. And the name would also be declared in the schedule. Section 4. Number of members to be returned for each geographical constituencies. At the general election for the 6th term of office of the Legislative Council, each constituency, geographical constituencies will have the number of members to be returned specified in the schedule. Please continue. Schedule. There are 5 columns on constituency code, delineation of area, name of GC, and number of members for the 5 GCs. Members may refer to the schedule for details. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. If we look at schedule, I don't quite understand. I'm looking at the English one. LCCA/R 2016/KLN-WNE. This is for Kowloon. Or LCCA/R 2016/KLN-WNE for Kowloon West. The third one is also /KLN-WNE. Well, for Chinese is okay, but the plan number in English is the same for the 2 GCs. Chairman, we have the same approved map for Kowloon West and Kowloon East GCs, but a red line is drawn to delineate the boundary of the 2 GCs. That's why the plan number is the same. But they cover different areas. It's just the plan number, not the code, not the constituency code. No. You may refer to the plan. Questions? Can you find a plan? Any question about other GCs? If not, we have already scrutinized the order in Chinese. I'll ask the legal advisor to scrutinize the English version for us. According to her, there's no problem. So we have completed the cross-examination. I think this is the end of our scrutiny. Can the clerk please tell us the timetable? On the 13th of November, a report can be made to the House Committee. If we don't seek any extension, the deadline for giving notice of amendment is 18th of November. And the expiry date of scrutiny period will be 25th of November. If members have no further question, we will not convene any more meeting. On the 13th of November, I will make a report to the House Committee. I don't think we need to scrutinize to extend the scrutiny period. Because the expiry date is okay in our case. If you want to move amendments, and bear in mind, legal advisor, please tell us what amendments can be made. because there's things that we cannot amend. Let me repeat. We cannot amend the number of GCs. It must be 5. The total number of GC members must be 35. No amendment is possible. The range of number of seats in each GC is from 5 to 9. But we can move amendment to oppose the relevant sections, and that will be put to a vote in a full council meeting. Mr. Sin, Mr. Chairman, I think there's a procedure to follow if we want to speak on the order at that meeting. Can we speak on the order? I think that's possible. We have to inform the President that on the day of the expiry date, there should be a chance for members to speak. Do you want to speak? I want to register my interest to speak. Understand there's a procedure in the House Committee meeting, but I might as well tell you now. Okay, it will be set in train automatically. We inform the President. We inform the House Committee and the President that you would like to speak. And then it will be passed. I don't think we need to conduct any public consultation for this one. The government has already done this. All right. If members have no further business to propose, then that's the end of the scrutiny of this order. I will report back to the House Committee on the 13th of November. Thank you all for attending today's meeting.